Oh, the power I wield. I stand on the side of the edges and give them the stink eye. All right, we've got two more exciting things. That's why we have to keep things moving along. We've got one more amazing session with a great panel. I was just chatting with them backstage. And we also have another demo jam, which we all know is a fabulous way for you to figure out what technologies you can use. Great segue into our next session. For this next session, we're going to be talking about efficiency versus effectiveness, balancing training and tools. So what role does technology play in driving an efficient and effective sales process to lead to greater success? And what role does technology play? Well, the goal of this next session is to talk to you about how technology and training combined are the best way to produce the most effective results. We've got a great moderator and panel to help us lead in this discussion. Richard Harris will be the moderator for this session, and he has inside sales experience and SaaS sales leadership experience for over 20 years. Richard is the CEO of the Harris Group and is the Director of Sales Consulting at Sales Hacker. And so today, he's going to be joined with a panel and talk about the most effective and efficient way for you to create a well-oiled sales machine using both. Come on up here, Richard.
Hello.
I'd like to recognize some of the awards that you've had recently. We're lucky to have you on stage. Winner of 2 years in a row, the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. He's been recognized, and also one of the 25 most influential people of inside sales. So we're lucky to have such an esteemed panel, and we'll leave it to you to lead us on the path of technology and training.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for hosting us. And how about it for Salesforce and Sales Hacker putting on this amazing conference? Like, I know this panel, and I know we're excited to be here, but the stuff that I saw this morning and yesterday has just been fabulous and better than I could have ever expected. Before we get into it, I'm actually going to follow a little bit from what happened this morning, where Simon Sinek got up and said, well, I'm going to go off script a little bit. So before we jump into the panel, I'm going to go off script a little bit. And I had this epiphany. I'm just curious, the people in the audience, how many of you like cheese? What kind of cheese do people like cheese? I am like a hardcore cheese fanatic, right? And I was thinking about this, that the sales process is a lot like cheese. But the question is, what kind of cheese? Is it a cheddar, which is solid, or is it more Swiss, which has a lot of holes in it? And I think this discussion around effectiveness versus efficiency is a lot like Swiss cheese. There's a lot of great flavor in there, but there's a lot of holes that we still have to fill. So we're going to focus on that very specifically today. So there's a ton of tools out here, right? There are so many tools out here, and they're all great. I know many of them, Exec Vision and SalesLoft and Datanyze. They're all going to help you. And so many of the tools these days help us get into a conversation. But there aren't as many tools that help you have a better conversation. We've become so efficient where every tool is saving us so much time that I often wonder why we even show up to work, right? It saves a ton of time. And then it also gets expensive. So I want to sort of walk through a couple of things, and maybe before we do that, actually, we'll go ahead and introduce the panel. But so we have with us Stephen Brody. If you don't know Stephen, he's been over at MuleSoft for how many years? 3?
Just under 2.
Just under 2. Stephen is actually an Armory special operations guy. He's the official badass of the group, all right? And by the way, thank you very much for serving, because that's not something all of us could do. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. We also have Ursula Yabras, who's the VP of Customer Success at InsightSales.com. She's been doing customer success for a while, and we've had a couple of awesome conversations about the value of where customer success is oftentimes more effective as well as efficient when you look at what they're doing with the customer as opposed to maybe what the sales team is doing. And there's not to degrade either part, but just she's got over 18 years experience and just has been in the Bay Area. She's been at Box and Microsoft, and just she's got the resume we all wish we had. I wish I had. So
That's right.
And then we also have Leslie Young, who's the SVP of Commercial Sales at Box, who's been around this. You know, it's not her first rodeo either, but she has helped build this organization from teeny tiny, if I'm not mistaken, to this massive global corporation. And again, I think when Box first came out, it was definitely a lot about efficiency and support, but you guys also have some great stories around, well, how do you use something like Box to be more effective? So we're going to talk about that, but as we go forward, I wanted to share a couple of slides with folks. this is what it costs right now to be more efficient, right? On average, and this is coming from Nancy Nardin of Smart Selling Tools. She's the one who sort of knows this stuff. People are spending about $560, $70 a month per rep to be more efficient. You are spending almost $7,000 a year for your reps to go faster. And that's good, and you should. Now, I ask this question all the time. How much do you spend on them to be more effective? That doesn't happen a lot, so we're going to leave that up there. And as you see, as you multiply this out by a team, it becomes a pretty big number. This is something else that Nancy has too, which shows what are the tools people are paying for they're not using. This is happening. I have this all the time, right? I actually have a box on a Dropbox account. I don't know why. I think I'm just lazy.
Tell you why.
Right? You know why, right? You know, it's $30, whatever. It's like, I don't care, right? Like it's a no-brainer. It's a tax write-off. So this, again, this is what I want to focus this conversation on is how do we spend this money wisely? And I'm not saying you need to get rid of the tools. You can't. The tools are table stakes now. If you don't have something on the communications platform or email or phone or dialers, it's not going to help, right? You have to have those things. So without any further ado, I sort of want to just go to the panel at this point and ask a couple of questions around, you know, how do you each see efficiency versus effectiveness? Like, how do you measure that at Box these days? Like, what are you seeing?
So from an efficiency standpoint, it's really about making, enabling sales reps or anyone in the organization to move faster so that they actually get to the point where they can be effective. And what I mean by effective is the quality of their engagement higher as a result of using these tools? And that's across the organization. I think one of the things that we learned this year is we had a project called The Brain, and we had some data scientists sit with our inside reps and our outbound reps just to watch what they were doing, and they came back saying we had no idea that they had to take 10 steps to get to the point where they could have a quality call with one of our prospects. What they realized is all of those.
When you say 10 steps, I don't like 10 mouse clicks? Like, what do you mean 10 steps?
10 steps, like go to LinkedIn, go to our internal databases, do some research to understand what initiatives are important to the customer. Pull all that information together in Box, in a dossier, basically building a dossier, and then pick up the phone.
So I've done some other analysis, and I've read and heard that it's 100 to 150 clicks to make that happen, right? So if you've all got computers, that's a lot of clicking before you even say hello on a single phone call.
So you're never going to replace the value of a human doing some of those activities, but where we could compress that, in other words, if we could pull LinkedIn data about who this person is and what their title is, and combine that with the insights that we have from either our marketing application or our inside of our organization as far as activities or what they've done on the web, and surface that to an AE to make that whole process much faster, then they're going to be on the phone more, having relevant conversations. And going to the effectiveness piece, it gives confidence to the person who's on the phone when they know what matters to this person, who is this person in an organization, what kind of role do they play. And then we can also use that data to inform other conversations that we're having. And you can look at that data to come up with some general scripts, if you will, that are relevant to particular industries, for instance. So you're not relying so much on the sales rep or the inside rep to understand how to pull insights out of the data. You're actually delivering those insights to them so that they can start to craft the conversation they're going to have, which makes them much more effective when they get on the phone.
Yeah, I sort of call it sort of the difference between content and context, right? Like, content is king. We all know that we need this content, but context is the kingdom. And the faster you can give that context to the salesperson, the more effective they can be.
That's exactly right. Yeah, great.
Stephen, how are you guys seeing this?
So I think about efficiency, if you use the sort of Drucker definition, it's, hold on, I wrote it down, doing things right. And my goal running a sales development team is to have the process organized in a way where reps don't have to think about what they need to be doing next. Yeah. That's where having a cadence laid out in front of you, where you understand the next step in engaging with the prospect is so key. That's where having a prescription for what you have on your second screen when you're working through a cadence and you're engaging prospects is actually really important. What we've found, especially when you hire a new grad, you can be as bright and talented and motivated as you could possibly be, and the reality is there's this constant self-doubt when you're stepping into a new sales role. Like, am I doing all the right things? And to Leslie's point, being effective is delivering value in each and every engagement, right? But when you're so mired in trying to be really hyper efficient in what you're doing, and you as an individual rep have to figure out what that looks like, you get dragged down and don't even have the opportunity to really be as effective as you could.
Ursula, what are you guys seeing?
So I'm going to come at it from a customer success viewpoint. And so the way I look at efficiency has to do with the way CSMs or customer success managers do their work and the time it takes to do it, but also the time in which they engage with customers, right? So are they engaging at the right time, at the right moment to deliver the right information? And being effective has to do really with the results and the impact that they have. And like you said, our impact really is how much revenue can we retain, but even better for sales is how can we create the conditions for further expansion. And so technology is huge for us. And the way I think of effectiveness is how can I help simplify and help my team prioritize? That's key, right? So using technology to help prioritize and simplify where they need to go, it's important. So when I look at technology and kind of balancing the stack, I look at seamless integration for managing the customer journey. And there's a lot of technology that helps me manage the process or the playbooks. But a lot of it comes in the background, right? It's like the technology we use internally and that we sell to customers. The power is how can we put it behind the scenes so the output to the user, it's very simple.
Right.
It just gives you the target. So that's, the simple I can make it, then the technology is more effective for me.
So when one of the things we talk about with efficiency and effectiveness too is sort of, particularly with startups, and we're sort of, we clearly represent a lot of the startup mode, so I know different organizations have different approaches, but
Yeah.
how, one of the things I see all the time is better, faster, and cheaper, right? That's what everybody wants. And it's been a struggle for many organizations because I think most people can only do two of those things. They can't do all three. They're scared, they don't know how, they think it's going to take too long. They can do fast, and particularly in the startup world, oftentimes it becomes faster and cheaper, right? Because you do have to watch your burn rate, and that doesn't always make it better. And you can certainly do better and faster, but in the short term, that's not cheaper. That's a long tail solution. I'm just curious, have you guys, as you look at sort of this efficiency and effectiveness and balancing those three, better, faster, cheaper, how have you guys done it? And I know you each have sort of different perspectives from either here or in other places you've been. So maybe we'll start at the end this time.
Better, faster, cheaper. So that's a great question. And I go sometimes with the cheapest because I'm trying to improve a process. I'm trying to iterate, do my MVP version of an approach. So on that, I focus on not spending too much money until I actually prove the value of an approach, and then making the investment.
Right.
So that's been proven for me to work really well.
Sure. Stephen?
Yeah, when you speak to better, faster, and cheaper, I think my focus is just do better twice. You can only do two of them, just do better. And I'm like mindful of the fact that there's sort of different, levels of maturity for the sort of individual companies represented here. MuleSoft's selling enterprise-grade connectivity, and we are driving an outcome-based sale, the kind of sale where we are engaging CIOs and we are making a connection between how IT can enable them to achieve their objectives and what MuleSoft does. So for us, faster and cheaper doesn't actually matter. In fact, I would say pump the brakes, right? Spend the extra 5 minutes to ensure that you are delivering value in that conversation I think when it comes to using tooling to be better, the other thing that we haven't talked about is measuring effectiveness. We
Right.
actually, especially as a sales development leader, I think it's critical to recognize that you're the linchpin between sales and marketing. So you're sort of uniquely positioned to audit both ends of the sales and marketing funnel. And so what we actually have done is we have a sales optimization manager. So it's not a sales ops role, but this is an internal role where they are co-located with the team and have actually built out like an extensive set of BI dashboards that we actually use to monitor our effectiveness and the per rep efficiency. And it's not to necessarily drive more efficient reps or have them be more efficient in the number of mouse clicks they're making. It's more focused on identifying where there's sort of leaks in the entire funnel and how we can align investing in training and enablement to shore up those gaps.
Can you, and I want to get your answer, but can you give some examples of what's on that BI dashboard? Like what are the things you're measuring? Because I know people would love to go, oh, I want to know that.
Yeah, so this is another really, it's a great question because it's relevant now.
We didn't cover this.
So
in the
on the marketing side, you know, we're looking at everything from number of leads coming in, leads by asset, lead conversion rates, MQL conversion rates, and on the rep level, we're not only tracking activity, productivity, but actually the ROI per rep and the, you know, annual contract value, pipeline by AE, pipeline by region, by team, and we have so much drill down that I can go talk to the head of the Americas sales and sales team and speak to the metrics that he cares about, and concurrently go back to the head of demand gen and say, this is where I need an adjustment made. But to your point about efficiency and effectiveness, if we were more efficient, we'd probably convert more leads. But if we're proactively going outbound and connecting what we're doing to these broader business initiatives, lead conversion rate might not be the metric that matters. It's important to sort of keep your finger on the pulse, but at the end of the day, it's meeting with the right people. So it could be conversation time, it could be, you know, how many times you've actually engaged the C-suite or gotten them on the phone and where that went, or what kind of, you know, what your average sales price is by rep. So it's really critical to just make sure you're measuring the right things. And when you start doing that, it gives you the space to really just go a lot further and be a lot more effective.
Well, I don't know how much I can add to that, but I absolutely agree with everything that Stephen said. I think, you know, I have often used the phrase "go slow to go fast," and I think this whole thing about cheaper and faster and better, it's all dependent upon the situation. To what Stephen just said, if you're dealing with an outbound rep, their engagement is going to be slower. It's just the nature of the engagement, and the value that they provide in their interaction has to be relevant and has to have the context, as you talked about before. So the whole process is going to be slower, and it takes longer. So the outcomes that you get from that sort of engagement usually take 9 months. You know, when you start to see the conversion rates, and you start to, and by the way, the numbers are usually larger. And I think it goes back to this ROI. You have to take what you've learned from what those people have done and looked at the ROI from those activities over a period of time to understand, you know, what's the baseline on better, faster, cheaper. With regards to the faster and cheaper, I'm a big believer in you can throw technology out that is cheaper and faster, but if the people who are the recipients of that technology don't adopt it, it doesn't really matter. I took over a sales operations function about 1.5 years ago, and we went through all of the tools, of which about half were not being used. Now, these are all tools intended to help sales reps be more effective in the jobs that they were doing, so intended to help them. But because we were fast at putting them in front of the sales organization, we didn't provide the playbooks for how to use them and how to put them in the context of their workload. The perfect example of the, you know, wanting it to be faster and having to deal with the fact that it's going to have to, in order to get it better, we're going to have to slow down, is when you think about insights and data and how you use data. You can get a lot of data and you can get a lot of process, but it's about the human interaction with both of those things and how it can be useful in the sales cycle. As an example, I talked earlier about our going through and understanding what the OBRs were doing with their time. One of the things that we found in our effort to go faster is we actually delivered something that caused them to go slower. In other words, we surfaced it in one place, but then they had to go through an exercise of calling a bunch of people, and we didn't think through how are they going to capture that so that we could take it forward. So we had to kind of rewind and say, wait a minute, the interaction is different for the person who's sitting in the seat and actually doing the task. So I think we sometimes look at what data is telling us, and even to these things about what SDRs are doing, the go faster, right? How many leads can I qualify? Is it 50 or is it 70? And you forget about the value. So for us, just to transition there, if you took the SDR situation, we actually started to look at like what's the conversion rate, and that became a big mechanism for success within the organization, and also part of the pride of the organization in the sense that those people who had high conversion rates were the folks who the AEs wanted to partner with because they knew those leads were going to result in revenue. So we started to focus in on conversion versus creation, right? Yeah. Because it doesn't matter how much pipeline you create. If it doesn't convert, then it doesn't really matter. So back to what we started with, better, faster, cheaper, it really is very, very dependent on what you're trying to solve for.
So and just for the context of the audience, conversion can mean a lot of things to a lot of people depending on the pipeline. Can you share with us, unless that's too much secret sauce, of what was the conversion? Is it conversion from lead to opportunity to qualified op? Like what was your conversion?
Yeah, so the way we think about it is three things: conversion from lead to opportunity, and then opportunity to revenue. So ARR that you close. So in both of the places where we have business development reps who are doing the qualification and the discovery, they actually receive a bonus when the deal closes. And we actually put triggers in for conversion rate. And part of that is I believe that we're providing a service to the sales organization, and that service is providing them with the product that they can use to do what they're skilled at doing, which is engaging with the customer, executing a sales process, and closing the sale. So if we didn't connect those two things together, the product we were providing could be worthless. And we didn't want to have that perception, create that perception of the sales.
Great, thank you. I know we've got a couple more minutes left, and we do want to take questions from the audience. But before we do that, one of the things that often comes up a lot in efficiency versus effectiveness is the concept of training, right? So we're spending almost $7,000 a year on these tools, which are great, and again, table stakes sort of things, but how are you measuring the balance of training and coaching? And to a certain extent, I'll set the stage a little bit on training. Training is the classroom portion of it, right? It's me coming in and doing something like that. Or if you're an athlete, if you think about one of the Williams sisters, training is going to the gym. It's not just going to the tennis court, right? There's all this stuff. And then there's coaching, right? Serena's out there taking 100 forehands, or Phil Mickelson's doing 1,000 3-foot putts and still misses every one when they really matter. But and then coaching is the stuff that sort of happens live in the moment. And there's a great tool out there. I'll give it a plug called Exec Vision that actually can help you do that. But how do you guys value and do the training and coaching piece? Yeah. Maybe Stephen, we'll let you start this one.
Yeah. So this holds a special place to me because, like you said, I was in Army Special Operations for 6 years, serving in Ranger Regiment, and we were deploying every 6 months to go to war. And that meant that when we were home, it was pedal to the metal training every single day from dusk till dawn, or possibly beyond. And the last duty position I held, I was running a sniper team, and we actually did a sort of analysis and figured out that our 2 to 3 person sniper team had shot as many rounds in a 6-month period of time as every sniper in the entire 82nd Airborne Division had in the entire year. And the reason they entrusted us to go out every single night and go do the sort of mission they make video games about is because they realized that we were that invested in our success. So there was just a level of automaticity that happened when we were on target. And if I can make a single investment, I wouldn't invest in a single piece of technology. I think technology is fantastic, and quite frankly, I think it's sort of leveled the playing field for everyone, where you can go invest in a sales loft, and you can pick up box, and you can get on exec vision, and you can even have your one-on-ones sort of, automated and wide angle, right? But what you cannot overlook is you're never going to be effective if the second you finally get on the phone, you sound like shit.
Agreed.
Right.
How do you guys see
I don't know
it?
if I can compete with that. I mean, I don't know if I can add a lot of value. I think you said something, the thing that you said there is invested. Invested in success. So you can give training to people all day, and if they're not invested in their success, or if you don't know what the trigger is that motivates them to want to do better, or you don't put them in a position where they're stretching, the training piece of it is less effective, in my opinion. And I think we have to also look at the training in the context of the relevance of that training to the action that somebody performs every day. As to what you said about, I'm going to do strength training because I know if I do strength training, it's going to help me go up hills faster.
Right.
So you have to put it in the context of what it's going to do to improve the role that person has. And then I think you have to put it in play. I think watching the play-by-play and understanding the good and bad parts of that play-by-play are critically important. I think that's from a tool perspective, I would say there are tools that have really helped us with this, is when people get to see what they're doing, and then they have a conversation about the good parts of it and the places where there's improvements, and then there's actually an action plan that you can take against that set of things. And that's really what I think the value of training.
That's great. I know we've come to the end, so we won't have time for a question, but I'll leave this one thought with everybody, is that if you focus solely on efficiency, all you're really going to do is accelerate the suck. Right?
You're amplifying the bad.
Yeah, you're just amplifying the bad. But I want to thank all of you for coming up and sharing us and coming to New York and spending time with us. So thank you all very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending.
That's good.